I took off for a weekend last month just to try and recall the whole year, all of the faces and all of the places, wondering where they all disappeared. Welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speed race cars. That, of course, is Jimmy Buffett, because F1 is back with all of the faces and places we remember, starting off with Miami.
That changes in latitudes?
It is.
Yes!
Nice one.
It's amazing how one-sided the Jimmy Buffett knowledge is on this podcast.
Well, you're from across the pond. It's understandable.
Different island vibes, if we're being honest.
It's true.
Like,
it's true.
it is, there is no, I've looked at the map, there's no Margaritaville in Ireland.
Not yet, my friend. I could definitely bring those vibes there. I'm all in on the Margaritaville feelings. I feel like that is a good time. It's a sort of a blank check for adults to just be free and have fun and kick off their shoes. But I do need to listen to Mr. Buffet's back catalog a lot more.
Yeah,
his early stuff is legitimately excellent. Great Filling Station Hold Up is a fantastic song. Like, Jimmy Buffett gets a lot of shit for like when he was just in his harvesting the parrot heads, like Jimmy Buffett Incorporated era, but like early Gulf Coast, like more Nashville Jimmy Buffett, like he did have legit chops.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. That is Parrot Head Rob Zachney. I'm Parrot Head Drew Scanlon. Future Parrot Head Danny O'Dwyer.
Absolutely. Caca, is that what we do?
That's what they do. When Jimmy Buffett go out there on stage and parrot heads, let me hear you. They go caw.
Actually,
and
what they do is
everyone
smoke
loved
a
it.
lot of weed. I think.
Okay. Hey, maybe I am a parrot head already.
His backing band is called the Coral Reefers.
Oh my God. Everything you say makes me want to get into Jimmy Buffett more. Also, the caca thing, that's literally how we like find our daughter in a room of people if we're like out and about. We don't like shout her name. We just go caca because she knows that's us. So amazing. No one else steal that because it's going to be confusing otherwise.
If you are new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode, which assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 338. Wow. And don't worry, even though we are almost in May, you haven't missed much because we had two races canceled.
Because the season's starting this weekend, it turns out.
Pretty much.
We just hit reset on everything.
Look, at least you're not WEC fans. Like I was checking out the other day. I was like, hey, what's WEC been up to? I feel like I should have seen her. And that's right. Their entire opening part of the calendar depends on things being extremely normal in the Middle East.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and there are fewer races, so
yeah,
a bigger chunk of their season has been taken out.
Yeah, Qatar F4 is probably having a rough year.
Right, yeah. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release ad-free versions of this podcast early, along with bonus pods and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing, documentaries, and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's been going on in Patreon land lately, Danny?
Well, we did experiment with another racing series. Backed by popular demand, we produced a primer for Formula 2. So if you have been, if F1, if the 24 race or 22 and counting race season hasn't entertained you enough, or you've been catching the highlights of F2 over on the Formula One YouTube channel, or maybe you're just interested in all of these beautiful young drivers coming up from the lower leagues, then you should check out this primer. It was a lot. People have been asking for a little while, so it was fun to put together. We had a lot of fun chatting about it. A lot of fun trying to get Drew to pronounce names properly.
Oh my God, yes. I actually really enjoy the process myself because it's great having a way to get introduced to these drivers before they make the jump to Formula One. When they come in, if you already know them, then you're already a fan, or a non-fan.
Yeah, totally. It's a big,
that was cool.
And a lot of the rough edges of getting into a new racing series are sort of dealt with in some way because you know the tracks. The cars are not too different fundamentally, you know, even though there are some very big differences, obviously. But yeah, so a lot of that stuff is sort of taken care of. You know, rules and whatnot are familiar, things like that.
A lot of fun stories I didn't know before. Also, just people's origins and the team origins, and
Yeah,
it's the same as Formula One, man.
100%. Yeah, yeah, and even just like this series' origin as well is an interesting story of like what GP2 was, what, you know, European Formula 2 was, all the different things, and how eventually it was kind of Liberty Media who sort of folded it in under the F1 banner and sort of established it as a you know, a more traditional lower division, as you see in many other sports, such as the life of a motorsport fan. Though it's a lot of series that start and end, the leagues that pop up here and then disappear here. Yeah, but yeah, you can check out our primer along with, you know, dozens of other podcasts, many of which are reviews of incredibly silly movies, over on our Patreon. And a massive thanks to all of our incredible title sponsor patrons, the Military Industrial Complex. Man, great business going on over there at the moment. Warizzle, also, as it turns out. R.I.P. Egberto and Igor Furman. TVGP.tv, that video game podcast. Let's Margot Racing. Jing Wells. Dr. V. Deange, It's a Me Ferrario, AI-generated content, Mojo Nixon, Get Rich Odai Ryan, Agave ATX, Cyphers Training, Turf SES, Michael Maves, Cigarettes, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC, Bottas, Not Last, Drew Stewart, Peak Super Clippy, Bailey Foot, Abraham Getchell, The H Button, hashtag Bunny for Work. Oh, they need to get in contact with Hire This Walker, I think.
That's right.
Good on that. Good luck looking for the work, Bunny. We love you. Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Voltar Keyboards, Jeff Foster, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Lachlan the Maddened Man, Samurai Love Story, and Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much for your incredible support over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Join today, and we promise we won't cancel any races for the foreseeable future. We're always here, even in the case that Rob's house is exploding or something, you know?
It's doing the opposite of exploding, really. It's leaking all over itself.
Good point. Yes, that is the opposite.
Now,
of
it does
exploding.
look like it has exploded. That is what my kitchen currently looks. It looks like someone detonated like mining charges somewhere in my kitchen. And now there's like tradespeople sifting through the rubble for treasure and clues as to what's happened.
Man, it's good. The Iranians mind your kitchen as well. They are just at it at the moment. That's way too much.
That would be bad targeting on the Revolutionary Guard Council's part. I have nothing to do with this.
Okay. Well, if Rob has to bail, that's why, or mute or something. But let's just jump right into the news here. We mentioned before we went on break that F1 would be reviewing these new rules. That kind of was always in the cards, I think. You know, we're gonna try version 1 here, and we have a planned update. But what that update will actually be, we don't know yet. And so they met over this break and have come up with some changes, Danny.
Yes, the hot fix. Download it now to access the servers.
I would call it a hot fix. It's not like a full patch. It's some balance tweaks.
And some of this stuff is also likely to change again. I will say the sort of overriding conversation about this has been, what can we do without it getting too political? So they've tried to make changes, but ultimately, you know, F1, as you all know, if you listen to this podcast, maybe you're new to the sport and you don't, but trying to get all of the various stakeholders to agree to things in very short periods of time is not generally very easy. But they have managed to make some changes. I think a lot of these were changes that they had sort of, you can read it and go, they probably had this in their back pocket already if things don't work. And I've tried to sort of, make them as understandable as possible here. So there's 4 main ones we're going to talk about, or at least the changes can be sort of like put down into these 4 little bullet points. So first of all, they have raised the super clipping limit. So this was obviously one of the big issues people had, a lot of big issues that the fans had, but also the drivers, which was that
the phrasing here, I'm sorry, this is going to be a little confusing. We're going to do our best, but the phrasing of all this stuff, it's like raising a limit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a reduction in the recharge. Like what does...
Yes.
Like there's a lot of like double negatives going on.
There is. Even when I was writing this, I was like, am I thinking that correctly? Like, is that actually what they're saying when they say that? But yeah.
Right.
Yes, raising the limit does seem like a bit of a contradiction in some way. So essentially, obviously, when the cars are driving down the straights in particular, they're being powered by the internal combustion engine, but also this new battery system, hybrid battery system thing, which is 50-50 at the moment, or somewhere near that in terms of power output. So one of the big things that we were running into was that the batteries at a certain limit would essentially hit their red line, that you would not be able to put any more throughput through the battery. And so what was happening a lot was that, 80% down a straight, maybe earlier, the engine would essentially top out. And it was very obvious that it was, and it would start to slow down essentially, because
it's recharging the battery.
Yeah, because what it was doing was it was essentially harvesting energy from the MGUK or from whatever it was pulling back, so the car go sort of make this awful sort of dying noise as it was struggling at the end of the straight. So essentially, what they've done is they've raised that limit from 250 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts, which on paper is a pretty, sizable increase. I'd say it's like a third or something of this extra. So a decent amount. Obviously, it'll depend track by track how useful this is, and ultimately, I don't mind. I mean, I don't know. I'm very forgiving of these things. I care more that the racing is good than the historical fan experience is the same. So, if the cars do make a little bit of a whinny at the end of the straights, which I'm sure they will, this isn't going to necessarily on its own change that, although the next point might help it. But I think this was one that people saw coming anyway.
Yeah, maybe get to the next one and we
Sure.
can kind of talk about both of these in conjunction.
Yeah, so the other thing that they have done is they have reduced the harvesting limit again. A little bit of word spaghetti here going on. But essentially what they have done is they have reduced the amount of charge that the battery, or the MGUK rather, does. No, it's the battery. This would be... Yeah,
This
I
is
guess
the
the battery.
storage. Yeah.
Yes, through the various systems, I guess. From 8 to 7 megajoules. So essentially, this is the amount. Do not think about this as output. Think about this as the amount that the batteries themselves are harvesting. So what this kind of does is give the put less of an impetus on the act of recharging, if that makes sense. So the drivers are essentially spending less time doing that, and so will be more on the limit. It seems a bit counterintuitive, but essentially what it's going to do is make it so that there is less, I guess, of a delta between how much charge is happening to allow the cars to sort of play in the mid. Yeah, go on, Rob.
I'm just going to say here, I'm surprised by how reactionary I'm feeling about this.
Okay.
I think this is the moment where I start to hate this conception of F1.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
You did grimace, I saw.
It is partly these language issues you're having. We're pretty smart people. We follow the sport pretty closely.
Yeah.
There's just stepping back. There's a large conceptual issue here where this stuff is speaking a language that's very native to engineers. Like my wife is an electrical engineer.
Right.
Clipping is something that like she completely understands in any context, no matter what type of system you're looking at. Like clipping is something that makes a great deal of intuitive sense, and that's something that like engineers across a lot of fields play around with. What happens when you sort of saturate a sensor or hit a limit? But that is not a thing that most of us engage with on the regular. And all this stuff is like phrased in such a way that doesn't really have a ton of intuitive sense for exactly what all these changes mean. And then the sum effect of all these changes is kind of like, it is a little bit like, don't worry, we're going to slow these cars down even more.
Yeah, that's
so like the super clipping limit. Basically what they're solving here is, or what they're trying to solve, is that the super clipping is when you're heading down the straight, you're at full throttle, and then the car just begins harvesting energy, and that's where you would have the sort of paradoxical, like, drivers fully on the throttle, but the car is no longer putting as much power out. It's actually trying to recover some down the straight. By raising this limit, the car is now recovering more energy, i.e. slowing itself down more when you are at full throttle on these straights. So you're going to have cars, when they hit this limit, they're going to be slower down the straights.
But they're doing it for a shorter duration for two reasons. One, because the power that they're harvesting is now increased, so they're putting more energy per time back into the battery. And as Danny said, the storage is also smaller. So we're going from 8 to 7 megajoules.
And they may drop it down to 6.
Hang on.
Right. So
Drew, when you're saying they're doing it less, that mean like say you're heading down a straight. Does that mean you're saying the time that you're doing it? Do you mean like over the course of a lap, or do you mean like you're going to be clipping for a shorter distance on the straight?
So the way I understand it is that over a lap, you only you have a smaller amount of storage.
Right.
And then when the cars use super clipping to recharge, they do so faster so that they are super clipping
the
for
recovery
less time.
rate is higher.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there should be less of
Okay,
it.
that is good. That sounds good to me.
Right.
And
But I think
they're sort
reading between the lines here and what they're not saying out loud is that, okay, we've got, just look at the storage amount. You have now less power that you're deploying to the car over the course of a lap. Mm-hmm. That nothing else has changed about the power unit. Your internal combustion engine is still outputting the same amount. So these cars will be slower in lap time. And I'm going to agree with you, or I think maybe Danny said it. That's fine with me. Mm-hmm. I just want the racing to be good.
It's about a second a lap, they think.
Okay.
They are going to be. Obviously, we'll have to see. Yeah, so those are the two main ones. And like you said, they sort of work in tandem, and they are complicated. And ideally, this is stuff that we wouldn't have ever had to have known about in some way, I guess. But yeah, so those are the two sort of main ones that we're going to see lap by lap by lap. There are two other aspects that are worth mentioning. The first is the issue that we saw in Suzuka with Ollie Behrman's crash, which was this delta in speed, essentially the closing speed between two cars, which is something that happens in F1, but usually because of some sort of mechanical issue or somebody misses back in the old days, if somebody lost a gear or something, this could happen, right? But I think the nature of how it happened, how it's happening in F1 with regards to the super clipping in particular, and also, as we saw, that was on a turn, right, where the car was clearly just had bottomed out, and the other one was in recharge, and one was in I don't know, boost mode or whatever you want to call it.
Well, now you've got, instead of everyone having the same kind of power unit effectively, you now have occasions where someone could be exceeding the speed with the boost and much lower in harvesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is now new, and we've diverged from the normal speed in two directions. So we're trying to even that back out.
So this one's a little bit, more opaque or less opaque. I can never figure out.
I don't love that there's a term I feel like I haven't seen here before.
Yeah. So essentially, there are now key acceleration zones. Is what I don't know if that's a term that they're going to be using, but that is essentially the way that, from reading the stuff that I've
This is extremely hot fix.
Basically, the full 350 kilowatts of electrical power remains available to deploy there, but there are certain spots where it's 250.
The other way
around.
Again, to Rob's point, they've I feel like they've messed this up. Over the whole lap, I think, they are now limited. They're limited from 350 to 250 kilowatts deployment. However, there are certain zones where it is safe to use the full 350.
Which is what essentially for the slower car, I'm guessing.
No. So
wouldn't that increase the delta?
So the battery is deploying less energy to the car, meaning now it won't go as fast.
Right.
Except in these safe areas.
Okay,
which are
okay.
accelerating out
But
of
Drew,
turn.
explain to me again like I'm a small child here.
Yeah.
The Behrman issue was that Colapinto was harvesting,
Yes.
and you had huge overtake delta. How does this tweak change the risk profile that?
Behrman
Does that
won't
mean
be
the
going as
Colapinto
fast.
would still be using 350 in that, even if he's in like harvest mode?
Well, so he theoretically would be using less harvesting because of the previous points, right? So now they've said that because we're now harvesting, the rate of harvesting is higher and the total storage that they have to refill is lower. They're only going to be harvesting for 2 to 4 seconds per lap. So Colapinto would theoretically have been doing less harvesting on that lap. So theoretically wouldn't have been going as slow. Again, this is how I understand it. Also, the point that we're talking about here, because now the car is limited to 250 kilowatt deployment in most areas, Behrman wouldn't have been going as fast.
Fast, right? Yeah.
Oh, so that wouldn't have been a key acceleration zone.
No.
That would have been a zone
Correct.
where they're low, just slapping down the 250 limit, and now Behrman is like not rocketing.
Exactly.
down
So
the-
the
down
key
Right.
acceleration zones will be in places that are like presumably safe, so straights and whatnot.
Well, the coming out of a turn, I think.
Okay,
Where you
yeah.
can see ahead of you, like not blind areas. The other thing is, so they've also capped the boost. So if Behrman had gotten boost on Colapinto the previous lap and then deployed it, that is now capped at 150 kilowatts.
And what was it?
So the boost isn't as powerful. I don't know what it was
Okay.
before.
Okay. Crazy. Okay. Do you want the last one?
I hope I've got all this right.
I
Yes,
hope so
please.
too, because I honestly wrote all this stuff down last night, and then this morning when I looked at it, I was like, "This is Cyrillic." So
Like when you write down a dream.
yeah, exactly. It made total sense when I wrote it down.
Key acceleration zone, more power, safety.
Limit bigger
Yeah.
and smaller.
Okay, so now we got the last one, folks. Safety on starts, what I have coined the Ferrari problem. So this is the issue that some cars are having with the requirements to essentially spin up the engine to make sure that it bites when the lights go out, and they go. We knew that Ferrari had problems with this before the season even
Well, no, they have
started.
advantages.
Oh, sorry,
The Ferrari
sorry.
problem is that their unit, I think, is a smaller turbo. It's easier
Yeah,
to spin
sorry.
up.
Yeah.
So the problem was they are basically going like every start they're getting the boost Mario Kart style.
Yes.
I do hate how often that.
Sorry,
game
I
is
forget which
relevant
team
to
it was
assessing
that was
that problem.
having the
It's everyone else relative to Ferrari,
Yeah.
but some teams have been really afflicted by it. I want to say McLaren has gotten bogged near the start. I feel like Red Bull hasn't had a great record with that either.
No, they haven't. But I think there's anyway. Some teams are obviously, or maybe it's drivers really, maybe more so, that are struggling with it because it's like the anti-stall issues we used to see a lot of about 10 years ago, where if you're starting, it's like missing the start gun on a race. Like you're just trying to catch up basically at that stage. So essentially what they've done is they have added something called low power start detection, which is a system that in the event that you do bung up your start for whatever reason, the system will automatically kick in the MGU-K deployment so that you
Use the battery.
use the battery. So essentially it is like, so you don't crawl off the line and the person behind you, or more often than not, the person 2 cars or 3 cars behind you who doesn't know you're going slow, doesn't go into the back of you. Essentially what it does is it gives you a little bit of battery to try and get you going. So at least you're not creating a roadblock. They have
Who was
said
it
that
at like
this,
Matrix Dodge, a starting grid collision in Australia? Was it Bortoletto?
yeah, it was crazy. Was it Bortoletto who did it? Yeah,
Or
it was.
Colapinto.
It was remarkable. Like remarkable that wasn't worse. Just an incredible piece of driving to get around. But so essentially they have said there will be no advantage from this system. We're not talking about speeds that are going to, make this an advantage. But essentially it's there to stop grid stalls and crashes at the start of the race.
Well, and remember, we also disallowed cars from using the battery at the start.
Yeah.
For safety reasons, if they
Yes.
don't bog down, right? So everyone, if all goes well and no one bogs down, everyone is using only the internal combustion engine to get off the line, right?
Yeah.
If you do bog down, then you are allowed to use your battery.
Yeah.
And that'll all happen automatically.
Yes, exactly. It'll know. Apparently, I don't know how these engineers are managing to pull all this stuff off. I don't think you can just software upgrade this thing, but
That might be.
yeah, maybe you can. So those are the 4 big changes. Obviously, like you said, Ferrari are probably not going to benefit to that last one.
Rob, you're making a face.
Yeah, what's going on? You okay, buddy?
I
You out?
just-
Is this it? You finally done with
No.
F1?
I think it
your
is
house
so
flooding?
funny for all. Well, I also got an unfortunate text that makes it sound like the plumber is going to be busy for the rest of the day before being able to address this leak. So that is
Can
frustrating.
they turn
But,
your water off, or do they need to?
No, we still got water.
Okay.
So
Fill up your bathtubs,
hopefully
baby.
It'll be resolved. But it is so funny. First of all, do you remember last year F1 was talking about we need to simplify the language so our stupid fans can
Well,
follow
this is from the
sport.
FIA, right?
And where we're at is you practically like need an you at least need to have done an electronics refresher to know like we're this close to being like how many ohms are in the in the system here. They've changed the resistance in the circuits on the F1 car.
You were just talking before we went live about vinyl players and stuff. Like this is we
Saying it was magic.
We complain about this, but this is why we're here, Rob. We're sick, right? This is why we're here.
This stuff is all interesting, but I think the problem for me is there are a lot of now, like, I think part of it is so much of this is not organic or inherent to the way the cars function, right? That this is we are able to like sort of just like literally tweak the dials on how efficiently these things can recharge versus how much power they can deploy over the course of a lap. So like there's nothing inherent to, there's no analog to like fuel in a car because they can literally say like your battery tank is bigger or smaller and fills up at a different rate depending on how we like tweak the dials. So you don't have like an intuitive like that. There's sort of a natural or inherent order to the tech that these things are following, where like battery go up, battery go down. It is that itself is sort of a thing that is metered by the rules, but now we are creating a lot of like sub rules to how that metering works and how power is being gained, how it is being deployed, where it can be deployed. There are a lot of moving pieces to this that like conceptually it just gets a little like messy to follow, and maybe it only matters in the abstract. Maybe like come this Sunday,
right?
We won't care because the racing will be fine and you won't be thinking about this stuff. But just like looking at the rules, there's now so many tweaks they've made to it where like, well, when the car's in this zone, it can use its full battery. In this zone, it can't. That's a lot of asterisks on just how the cars are operating over the course of the lap.
Yeah, I think there's an argument here that we can be either really kind to the FA and say like this is the type of stuff that we're not usually exposed to, or we can feel from I think what you're saying is very fair. I think unfortunately we are sort of being inundated with this new information because we're trying to figure it out, but also that it does feel like sort of government overreach or something. I think there's 2 points I have here, or 2 things that this sort of brought up for me. I guess the first is that this really shows you how much control Formula One has over the cars now, because they have access to this sort of sweeping legislation that they can essentially impose on top of all of the teams. It's like they always had rules that they were able to do, but this is so much more direct. Like they're able to, within a season, essentially like cap or extend the output of these cars, which is pretty remarkable. And I think the other thing that this brings up for me is that, there are certain things, I don't know why, maybe it's the way we are educated or the way we grow up, but there are certain aspects of sort of science that feel natural to us. And then you open up a book about like astrophysics and everything's topsy-turvy and doesn't make sense anymore. You know what I mean? Like things that you think would do one thing are actually like the other way around. It's not intuitive. And I think there is an aspect of these rules that is very non-intuitive. You know what I mean? Like like you really have to stare at them for a second to sort of figure it out. And I think that's not
electricity
helping.
in particular is tricky,
right?
Because electricity, what do you mean when you're talking about power? Do you mean current, for instance, which
right.
a lot of these regs are written in the language of like talking about current. But then you're talking about joules, just overall like energy expenditure. So when we're talking about like what is the trend, like what does power mean from the battery? Even there it gets a little bit fuzzy because we're talking about like deploying kilowatts, but then when we're talking about what you can do over the course of a lap, we're back to joules. So I think power is an odd one because there's so many different ways that we're used to measuring like electrical systems power versus potential power. It's kind of a goofy thing where like in some scenarios we encounter electricity and the thing that matters is measured in volts. In other spaces, what matters, and usually wattage, current is the measure of like how much power is actually going through a system. But we encounter electricity in these different ways and these different ways of like talking about like its capacity and what it can do. And I just don't think that stuff is terribly intuitive compared to like revs on an internal combustion engine. Very simple for me to understand. When you're starting to talk about like recovery rates, all this, it starts to get a little bit fuzzy.
Horsepower, yeah.
I know what a horse is.
Yeah. So, again,
all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see this weekend how things go, and I guess over the course of the rest of the season, or whether we can even determine a difference.
Is there a little bit? Just my last boomer thought. I never fully escaped the feeling that a little bit of Behrman and Colapinto was like a skill issue thing, though. And like part of it, I think so. But this goes back to a lot of discussion around safety across open wheel racing, going even tiers down, which is that the drivers are sort of expected to be full commit, quali pace every lap. And that is a really new phenomenon in racing. Like it used to be much more, you'd be sort of like managing these things for endurance. Now drivers are sort of trained and conditioned to always be in like full Cobra Kai, maximum pace mode. And I was always a little bit like, yes, the speed differential in that scenario is alarming, but I always looked at it as like Colapinto drifting on the straight felt to me like something that might have been fighting words in the pit after a race like 30 years ago, right? Yeah. Where it's like, you don't do that in that position. And like Behrman not being prepared for a car he was overtaking to be moving relatively slow and occupying that space also sort of felt to me like, yeah, but I watched tons of other series where huge speed differentials, now admittedly, like those are multi-class racing. You're supposed to know like what that car is capable of doing. But the notion the driver like can't be prepared for a speed differential like that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way too, where it's like, what is happening on an F1 track has changed. And kind of what the argument has been here is, for the sake of safety, we can't tell drivers to like be more heads up about that and like maybe hedge their bets a little bit more. Instead, it is, we must prevent them from ever encountering a scenario where they have to react to a car moving that slowly ahead of them under these rules.
I think a lot of this is downstream from what you said at the start, which is that for whatever reason, especially in F1, these cars are being driven at the limit almost the entire lap. And I think you can't, because of the delta, if you will, between the competitors, you can't give an inch. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Colapinto was probably, obviously was more to blame in that situation. But I think Behrman was sort of put in an impossible situation where he has to take a uphill right-hander kind of blind, because if he doesn't, he's going to get gobbled up by somebody else because everyone else is also forced to do it. But yeah, so it's it's not ideal. And honestly, like so much of whenever we talk about these rules, whenever we talk about the cars, when we talk about the overtaking, so much of this always in the back of my head, I'm thinking these tracks were not designed for cars like this. Like they weren't designed for these closing speeds. They weren't designed for these top speeds. They weren't designed for these speeds. Like that is not, they were built in a different era and they were driven entirely differently. So, I think in a way we are always sort of trying to forgive the tracks, in some way with these regulations and rule changes. We're trying to balance that stuff off. Yeah.
Well, like you said, Rob, I hope these changes are, for the sake of the viewer, transparent. Like we don't even really think about them the same way I don't really think about, brake balance, which is something that the drivers are dealing with throughout a lap as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, but we'll be back with some more news and then the Miami track walk. Danny, give us some good news.
Turkey, yay.
Yay?
Pronounce it with me. Turkey, yay. Turkey, yay.
Turkey, yay.
That's the way we pronounce turkey now, just so you know. Because it's been a while since we've been here. But they have officially, sick of people comparing them to a bird, they have decided to employ the new international pronunciation of turkey, yay. And I'm here to say turkey, yay! We're going back, folks. We're going back. Going back to the beautiful world of dictatorship Turkey. I was about to say Viktor Orban's Turkey, but that's Hungary. Yes, who also should maybe change their name because we think that's associated with eating delicious birds. But no, Erdogan's Turkey is back on the calendar. Turkey was a track.
Looks like Turkey's back on the menu, boys.
God, there's so many. We can. No, you're not allowed to say that. See, Turkey, yay.
Looks like Turkey, yay is back on the menu, boys.
They've changed the pronunciation, but can't avoid the association. It wasn't enough. Try again. Roll again, Turkey, yay. Yes, Turkey was a track I loved. 2005 to 2021, we had it on the F1 calendar, and then it disappeared like so many great tracks. I miss you. I was about to say Singapore. I miss you. Malaysia. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy. It's back on the calendar from 2027. Next year, we're going to have Turkey back on the calendar. And I, for one, am very happy. I think it's a great track. But while I was doing this, there were other. I was looking at the calendar stuff for the next couple of years, and there were some other issues, some other things that I did not realize had happened. Some of this must have been during the off season. I don't think we talked about this because we were talking about this year's calendar, which already has some changes with the Madring coming in as well. But a couple of other things that I had to like double check this because I was like, am I dreaming? Are two of the tracks that I've wanted back for years coming back? But another track that's coming in is Portimao.
Yes.
Which I did not... I never got the bulletin on, I guess. So the Autodromo de Algarve, which we last raced in a sort of... It was one of the fixer circuits during the COVID year.
Right.
And we raced there, I want to say 2 years. Great little go-karty track. Just a weird Formula One track. Not that many straights, and they're not that long, and just lots of crazy undulating.
Cycling track, right?
Is it a cycling track?
No, sorry, motorcycle.
Oh, motorcycle. Oh, yeah, it's 100% a GP track. Yeah. It's like it is built for bikes. You can tell. It's lots of uphills. It kind of feels like a track that probably changed a lot just because of the ground shifting over the past 50 years or whatever. So we're also going back next year there. And then the other thing that's happening is that Barcelona is alternating with Spa between here and 2032. And then the one I think we talked about the fact that Zandvoort is off the calendar as of next year,
right.
Which I'm also happy about. I know that's that's sort of a traditional track that came back, but I'm not a huge fan of it. And maybe F1 knew that Max Verstappen was going to leave Formula One and go endurance race. I don't know. Obviously, that is conjecture on my part. He's really just going to Mercedes probably. time will tell what Max decides to do. But I think that's great. I'm really excited about it. Turkey coming back. Turkey A, sorry, coming back. Turkey A, and I'm very excited about Portimao coming back. Those are two great tracks.
Yeah. Darth Noose on the Shift+F1 Discord has posted an image, and maybe we can get this for the show notes. That's like showing graphically when each
track. Oh, that's cool.
Each track shows up. So yeah, it's easy to see then Spa and Barcelona alternating, and then Turkey is effectively slotting in because by alternating we're losing a track.
Yes.
Right. Every other year instead of both of them all years. Another thing this chart points out is that Austria and Miami are both confirmed to 2041.
Go away at that. That's a city.
I mean, I love Austria, but
yeah, Austria, another track that has come back in recent years. Obviously,
if they want to confirm Austria till the end of time, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
genuinely, it's become one of the across multiple configurations of the car. Good racing.
Yeah, it's been a solid. I think that, and there's been a couple that have been surprisingly good. I think Baku, when it was introduced as well, we were very, I think, skeptical of that because it is another petrostate street circuit. But Baku has been great, and yeah, Austria obviously another historic, track in some respects, the Österreichring, but in its modern incarnation. Also, sort of another Max Verstappen circuit because it's owned by Red Bull Ring. But yeah, it's been another great.
Bring back Turkey, man. Bring back that looping triple apex corner. There's great stuff there.
Yeah, it's a fun time. So that's pretty cool. I for one, I'm happy that we're just not adding. I think we had a couple of like pretty cynical additions to the F1 calendar over the past 10 years. And these two. Portimao, I'm so happy to do Portimao.
It's still run by an authoritarian, basically single-party system.
Yeah.
Still pretty cynical.
Very, very true.
Not too distant legacy of ethnic cleansing. There's actually a couple we can talk about, right? Like, there's the Armenians, and then there's the Kurds. So, like, it's all cynical all the way down, but at least you get a good fucking race course out of this one.
Hey, they haven't picked sides really on the Iran situation, so we're gonna have to see, if the war expands over the next year, then maybe this will enter the zone of no F1 along with Baku and everything else. Just on that, how are we feeling about the likelihood of an Abu Dhabi finale? And what's the other one?
About it.
What'd you say?
Qatar. Abu Dhabi, Qatar. I do not feel good about it.
Me too.
It is still such a long shot, especially since first of all, we've heard so many times about negotiations happening, then not happening, agreements being reached, and then not being reached. Like the level of, like here in the United States, we basically know that like we have a regency presidency of like some of the worst people on the planet, and then a confused old man who is in charge of this and kind of a dumbass. So you already can't really trust the information you're getting from like the American side of all this, but then you add that like level of uncertainty and haplessness to the complexity of an international negotiation to reach a settlement, or at least reach an agreement to suspend the conflict and reopen the strait. I just don't see it happening.
And a company in Formula One that is trying to put their best face forward and say like, everything's fine. So we'll totally race here.
That's the one way in which I feel like like we saw that before with I think it was it Bahrain, which is the one that has the land bridge with Saudi. It's Bahrain, isn't it? Yeah. So that remember years ago the drivers staged a protest there, but yeah, F1 again were more than happy to go for it. So that's the gray zone that I'm not sure about. I think pragmatically you probably shouldn't be doing this. I don't think there's any world in which by the time we get to that part of the year that I think the best case scenario is that there is a temporary ceasefire that has continued into that point. I cannot see diplomacy figuring this thing out, within Trump's term probably, because it's just going to be such an L for the Americans and I don't think he's willing to do that. But like again, who knows what's going to happen in Iran with the sort of the the current line of succession is also in a weird spot with the new guy essentially being
Khamenei the younger.
Yeah, is apparently quite injured from a strike, and there's obviously the IRGC and other people fighting there too for a bit of power. Who knows what's actually going on there? And obviously they're doing their own ethnic cleansing behind the veil as well. It sounds like, but I feel like I just can't. They're right there. It's not like Jeddah. You know what I mean? Like you can have a sort of a situation where you're being as safe as humanly possible, but they are right there. And also Iran is more than happy to hit, especially the Emirates, like especially the UAE. They're more than happy. That there's a lot.
And F1 is an American company.
And F1's an American company. That is a good point. Yeah, and yeah. And even if you're sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but even if I think there is an element of like even state sanctioned violence, you have to think about other parties within that, because like between that and there's a lot more skin in the game going on here with other states fighting each other and infighting, and other ethnic groups and religious groups within those countries as well, that kind of makes the UAE a bit of a target at the moment.
Well, from track changes to personnel changes, Rob, we got a couple notes here, and maybe let's just kind of speed through this as we got to talk about Miami.
We got just a quick update here. So as we know, Wheatley left Audi in part because speculation was that his role was not as team principal-ish as he had hoped, and Mattia Binotto was really overseeing the team, and Wheatley was more of a trackside guy, which was not what he signed up for. So they've now appointed a racing director, Audi endurance racing legend Alan McNish, who survived a few of the most hair-raising crashes I've ever seen, and came away okay. He is now the racing director, and it does seem like they are now sort of moving toward a dual command structure for Audi, which I think is the way the sport is increasingly going.
Yeah,
that there will be someone overseeing team operations and engineering and all the headquarters stuff, and then there's someone flying out to oversee field operations, lead the team on race day, and crucially interact with high-level VIP stakeholders on these race weekends, which McNish has experience doing in his role as a driver, but also he is coming off a stint heading up the I think the Audi Formula E program, where he acquitted himself quite well in the face of some real challenges. The race has a good write-up on this, and it's clear the reporters like him for how he dealt with them and dealt with some challenging things that came up in the Formula E campaign, but that they have found their guy, so it looks like Binotto sort of overall in charge of the engineering and corporate side, and then McNish is going to be leading the team on race weekends. The other big personnel change, and this one is pretty significant. Gianpiero Lambiase is leaving Red Bull, and he will be joining McLaren after a period of garden leave in 2028. Man, they must have locked that dude up with a contract. Now, obviously, GP's at a point in his career, and he's grown in stature as Max's championship career is taken off, that like engineers like this do tend to get tapped. Like he's at the point in his career where you get tapped for these bigger roles. The initial word was maybe GP was heading to McLaren to replace Andrea Stella. They have quashed those rumors, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is being sort of groomed for a like successorship within the organization to take over one of the major principal roles. The other part of this, though, is this is yet another person close to Max who is withdrawing from Red Bull and leaving that program in a much more uncomfortable position, and making it very uncertain what Max's future is.
Yeah. It's crazy how like every piece of new news coming out of Red Bull with people leaving, because it doesn't look like it's that bad there, but clearly the rats are jumping overboard. So you're kind of like, ooh,
Yeah.
Well, you
what's
had
going
a
on?
change in team principal, right? It might just be a result
I don't know.
of.
Yeah,
It seems like the
perhaps some
vibes
of
are
it.
off, but he is staying for the duration of his contract through, I guess, through 2028. So maybe it won't be a garden leave. Maybe he will just literally be at the. He will be alongside Max or whoever through 2028 until 2028, and then he'll make the jump. So it is not an immediate like bailing out and then hitting the mandated gardening leave, but yeah, it does suggest there are major sea changes already afoot at Red Bull, and there may be more.
It's gonna be weird if we're saying hello, hey George. It's gonna be. I'm not sure. It's gonna sound weird to my ears.
Oh, George to McLaren.
Exactly.
Calling it.
Oh God, yeah.
All right, Danny.
Miami.
F1 to Miami.
Welcome to Miami. That was our good friend. Well, Will Smith didn't sing that part. We're going back to Miami, folks. We first race here in 2022. It's a new track. It's not really a track. It is a car park, but I'm trying to not think about that too much. This takes place in the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, home of the Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino, Finkel, and Einhorn. That's everything I knew
Laces
about
out.
the Miami laces out. Exactly. It's everything I knew about Formula One was Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Or sorry, the Miami Dolphins was an Ace Ventura Pet Detective. This track has had good years and bad years, I'd say, or good maybe parts of races and then sort of slowed into a procession. It's an interesting track. It has it has 19 turns. They did 36 different variations of this during pre-production, let's call it, during planning to see how they could fit a track in this car park. And they landed on this one. 19 turns, 57 laps, 5.4 kilometers, 3.3 miles. It is essentially, God, it's a funny one. So it kind of comes down to long straights and two tight braking zones, and then a lot of kind of mid-speed to high-speed cornering. So the two main braking zones, which are obviously, the ones to think about, what we would have called DRS zones in the past. Obviously, we no longer play in that era of F1. The actual straight, the start straight is kind of weirdly short to the point where the back of the field is often doing the thing we don't often see in Formula One. We see it a lot in other racing series where the cars are starting on the final turn a little bit. There is a straight mode zone there for the drivers to use with their active DRS and whatnot. But it is not. It's not much of an overtaking opportunity unless you're kind of throwing it into turn one, which people have tried to do. The two main ones are the sort of after the start of sector one, right after the first turn, they're into this sort of mid to eventually high speed cornering section, left, right kind of stuff.
It's wiggly.
Kind of cool. Yeah, very wiggly, kind of cool, kind of good televisually, I would say. And then essentially the turns sort of wiggle themselves out, kind of, and eventually turn into a straight on sector two. But the start of that straight mode zone happens before some I don't know if we call them turns. We'll call them kinks in the road or something like that. The end of sector two has a hard braking zone at turn 11, which is one of the spots where you can go for an overtake. I don't think it's going to be the one where they go for overtakes this time, because after a small enough sort of arena style section, they are onto the proper straight, the main straight. This is kind of like the straight in the back of, I would compare it to the back of Austin, where you have a straight that is late in the lap that goes in. But this one's quite late in the lap. And then turn 17, which is the third to last turn, excuse me, is the sort of, at the end of this, the longer of the straights, or at least the straighter, longer of the straights, is the point at which we see a lot of overtaking. Now, we did see some interesting battles here, though, over the past couple of years, where the track is wide enough here. And again, this is sort of like speaking perhaps to the modern inclinations of F1 tracks, but it's been wide enough in the past where people have defended on, the inside or outside, and then just had a better turn into turn 18 and 19, which are actually kind of wide turns, and then have gotten people into that, on that truncated straight on the start finish line, have managed to get past before the entry into turn one. So I don't know in the current era of F1 which way this is going to go, because obviously with the harvesting and stuff over the lap, I don't know if it is better for people to attempt it on turn 11 now instead and try and get a gap on that crazy back straight. I kind of don't think so, but I am interested because before this era, we did have people battling after that straight, which you tend to not have. You tend to not have somebody passes on DRS and then immediately are under attack, but we have had that in Miami. So I don't know if this is going to be similar to previous years, if it's going to be even more so than previous years that you just can't overtake on 17. I don't necessarily see that. I don't know if the new regs are obviously going to have an implication here as well. But we'll wait and see, I guess. Antonelli, had a rough season last year, but this was really strong for him in his opening stint. He came 6th here. This was obviously another McLaren-dominated race. The first 20 laps last year were good fun, kind of until McLaren got into their 1-2 position, which was interesting. And then the other thing to think about on this one is for the start. This is where Verstappen this is it kind of like turn 1 in Jeddah. The opening turn here is quite tight, and then turn 2 is also quite tight. So this is where Verstappen was elbows out, I think in a fair way on Lando, but Lando ended up losing like 5 or 6 positions off of essentially getting driven off the track by Max. But again, I think it was actually Max was in his right to do it, given where he was in the track position. But it can be a tasty one too. So if we have a Ferrari still having good starts and one of the many drivers in that front having a tricky start, that turn 1-2 is going to get super busy on the first lap.
I'm knock on wood. I think we could have a really good one here. Miami is low-key, I think, been a better track than I think a lot of us figured.
Yes,
and I feel
agree.
like part of the story of that has been the amount of the track that they will contest for position has increased over time. So I'm really curious what the new regs are going to do, because, 17 proved not to be necessarily the place you do the overtake, but it is where you set up an attack through the end of the lap and the start of the new one. And we have now seen fights go through the 1-2-3 complex. Yes. And I want to say we've seen them continue through the next set of S's, like 4, 5, and 6. So like you have a lot of this lap where now it is, you can try something.
Yeah.
And this is, but that is under a much more punishing set of aero regs for like following distance, and much more challenging cars in terms of like just pure size. So what's going to open up? Like, I don't think we're ever going to get, well, I would be curious if anyone was ever optimistic enough to try something at that bus stop carousel at 12, where basically you have a huge curve on the inside, and then like a 180-degree radius corner. I'm curious to see it, but I think we could have a really good one. Selfishly, I'm extra hoping for that because I'm pretty sure I'm down near the timing and scoring line.
Ooh,
oh yeah,
Rob's going. Yeah, I agree. I think this is one of the few F1 tracks where there's kind of nowhere to hide. Like, there's no respite area from overtaking. You're pretty much coming up on a spot where somebody might try something or might try and close the gap. And I think, yeah, I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic. I don't like to ever, say it outright, but like similar to Rob, like I think this could be a fun weekend.
Yeah.
Do you know what they're doing with practice? There's some sort of weird practice thing they're changing?
They're adding 30 minutes
to practice.
To practice, yes, because there's only one. It's a sprint weekend, so
of course,
we're going to have one practice session. So it's starting a half hour earlier, and it will be 90 minutes total. Okay. And this is to sort of help everyone get to grips with,
so to speak,
the new rules. Yeah. Specifically, I think the starting stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, statistically, the last 4 winners have been Verstappen, Norris, Piastri. Those are all the winners in event history. Let's see, looking at the median finishing for drivers here in the top 5, this is in the top 5 tracks for Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, and Carlos Sainz. It's in the bottom 5 tracks for Alonso, Piastri, Bottas, and Hülkenberg. It is in the bottom 5 also for Mercedes as a team, as well as McLaren, Aston Martin, and Williams. Statistically, Max Verstappen and Red Bull have done the best.
Yeah, McLaren dominated last year, but Max, I forget what happened. There was 2 instances of safety car, I believe, last year. We had 2 crashes, so I think maybe that played into it. I can't remember, but yeah.
Average numbers of DNFs 2.5 for this.
Okay, yeah, it's a street circuit.
Track, yeah.
So people hit the walls, and then if they do, there tends to be a safety car to try and get rid of them.
Yeah. As you both mentioned, I think my personal ratings have increased over time. So these are scores out of 4. I've gone from 2022 a 2, a 2, and then a 3 and a 3. Yeah. So we could see something nice. Driver standings. Kimi Antonelli is leading the drivers' championship. Andrea Kimi Antonelli.
There you
go. Which I have heard that he prefers.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yes. He is leading with 72 points ahead of his teammate George Russell with 63. Then we've got Charles Leclerc in 3rd with 49 points. Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, in 4th with 41. Then the 2 McLarens of Lando Norris in 5th and Oscar Piastri 6th. Oliver Behrman sitting in 7th ahead of Pierre Gasly, who is himself 3 points ahead of Max Verstappen. And then Liam Lawson in 10th. Boy. Arvid Lindblad is in 11th, followed by Isaac Hadjar in 12th. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Audi is 13th, tied on points with Carlos Sainz in 14th. Esteban Ocon is 15th, followed by Franco Colapinto, the last with any points. And then we've got Nico Hulkenberg in 17th, followed by Albon, Bottas, Perez, and then Alonso and Stroll. Team-wise, Mercedes is, of course, on top with 135 points. That is 45 points ahead of Ferrari in 2nd. And they are 44 points ahead of McLaren in 3rd. Then Haas is in Gene Haas and team, 4th place with 18 points. That's 2 points ahead of Alpine in 5th, and then Red Bull in 6th, though those 2 are tied on points. Racing Bulls is in 7th, 2 points back. And then a big gap down to Audi in 8th and Williams in 9th, who are both tied with 2 points apiece. Then Cadillac in 10th and Aston Martin in 11th. And if you're wondering why you can be tied on points, but still a place behind, that is all to do with your total finishing positions. Like how many second places do you have?
Goal difference.
Yeah. Okay, looking ahead to the weather. So it is a sprint weekend, as I mentioned. So we'll have practice.
Yeah, what's Rob wearing?
Could be nothing. You all seen Borat?
So sprint qualifying is happening at 4:30 p.m. local. We are looking at 87 degrees.
Oh boy.
Fahrenheit. That's 31 Celsius.
For April. Jesus
52% humidity. 0% chance of precipitation, though, and 11 miles an hour or 18 kilometers an hour out of the south in terms of wind. Temperature climbing on, let's see, sprint and qualifying
Rob
day,
does not like that.
to a high of 92 or 33 Celsius.
Oh, boy.
Also, low percent of precipitation, just about 5% around 2 p.m.
Because all the water will have evaporated. Well, no, that would actually make precipitation, probably.
And that is, I think, between sessions. So you should skip things there. Different on race day, though. We're looking at 86 is the high in Fahrenheit, or 30.
86.
Yeah, a balmy 30 degrees Celsius. Humidity still 50 to 60%. Precipitation, though, at race time, 4 p.m., looks like about 10% climbing to 20. And there's a little lightning bolt icon here on my screen.
That's what tends to happen.
We don't want lightning strikes, but we do want rain.
So here's the thing. I don't know if we want rain, because I think with the reg changes, they are going to be even. They're already a little bit worried about, because we haven't seen these cars perform.
Oh, you think they'll just panic red flag?
100%. I think street track, the type of rain you tend to get in Miami when there's a cloud burst and the new regs just getting shifted, I think they would be very fast on the red flag. if it happens. So I'm a fan of rain. I grew up in Ireland, so, it's part of our DNA. But yeah,
The Margaritaville of the East.
Yeah, my question is, Rob, do you have a parasol?
I do not. Now, my wife has a number of floppy hats.
Okay.
So I think she's covered. She's got big
Oh, brilliant! Race day hats, like
big
like horse
floppy
race.
gardening hats.
Oh,
and,
even better.
things like that. But I do not. So I might need to buy some sort of maybe a little parasol, or I don't know. Maybe I need to find a baseball cap I'll actually look good in.
A Williams Martini Racing. Well, as Drew knows, if you want to save money, then don't buy them at the track. But you will have a very nice hat that you get to wear on a podcast for the next 10 years.
Or you could do what my buddy Ethan did at the Austin Grand Prix, which is buy last year's Mexico Grand Prix hat.
Yeah. It was a cool hat.
Yeah, not the current year and not the current track.
I'm so much of a dumbass. Like, I was hovering over the buy now button for a shockingly long time on a set of completely unremarkable Ray-Bans, except they were Malaysian Grand Prix edition Ray-Bans from the last year. And I was like, well, how can I pass up the opportunity to own? So, I'm going to hit those merch stands like a Category 4 hurricane.
You got to do it.
Yeah, go for it.
You're already over there. You've already bought the tickets.
Well, I didn't buy shit.
Right.
My buddy and
yeah.
the family bought tickets, and then the family made other plans, and so I got promoted to family.
They kind of have
now
to
you
hold on
gotta
to them,
load up.
right? Isn't that the thing? Like you
Right,
gotta-
that's the thing. Like, they discount it if you keep re-upping. So it was like, use them or lose them, or lose that discount at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another way to save money is to not buy the tickets and not use them. But hey, look, I'm happy you fell on the right side of that particular transaction. Have fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next pod. Hear all about it.
All right, we're going to take it to emails here in a second. Rob, do you want to choose maybe 3 here?
Can I read this top one quickly?
Well, yeah, before we do that, if you want to join the Shift+F1 Fantasy League, you can do so using the link in the show notes. You can also send us an email at shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails.
Danny, I say we skip that top one.
You
It's
sure?
just good advice for me about Florida. We should be nicer to Florida. Probably,
Okay.
I agree. Good point. Thank you for the good advice on the track.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Drew, you want to read this next one from Jonathan?
Yes. Jonathan writes, which of the recent crop of drivers do you think would be best at making the jump to commentary? It seems to take a mix of ability, affability, technical knowledge, communication, and a desire to travel and stay with the sport. As we saw with Daniel Ricciardo, even charismatic figures can fail at it. And people with unremarkable careers can be phenomenal analysts like Julian Palmer. My vote would be Alex Albon.
Yeah, wow.
He's low-key, funny, and knowledgeable, and I would love to hear Alex Jakes and Julian Palmer responding to his flights of fancy. Cheers, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I'm going to agree with that one because I think he would be a great third seat in that respect. Certainly better than David Coulthard. I respect the man. I don't think he's great in the booth.
Oh, really? I was also Albon was the name that came to mind for me as well. I think.
Oh,
there's
really?
Some, yeah, I think there's some great drivers. Like Max is very good at talking technically, but he doesn't fill air. Like you need somebody to talk more than he does. Obviously, Hamilton. I think he'd just be too wealthy. He wouldn't need to be doing any of that.
I think Hamilton's kind of shy.
He's too
I don't think
politic,
Hamilton
too.
That's
would.
true as well. Yeah. He's quite like introverted, probably, in that
Yeah.
way. I could see Carlos Sainz also being good at it, especially because he's multilingual as well, which I think
Him
really
and
benefits.
Albon are fantastic.
Yeah.
When they get into the nitty gritty, when they stop goofing around, they get in the nitty gritty of racing. Like, they really love talking about this at a really detailed level.
Yeah.
So I like that. Piastri, low key, a great explainer of things about the sport.
Yeah.
You've seen the videos F1 has put out where Piastri explains some obscure aspect. The video that jumped out at me was talking about when do F1 drivers blink. During a
very
lap.
cool.
And he had a
never.
really detailed answer for that is a thing you have to consider when you're an F1 driver.
That's
and
crazy.
he broke it down so beautifully and so well. It's like, oh yeah, I would sit in Professor Piastri's class and have him unpack this for me. So that would be my dark horse candidate. Dan, you want to read this next one from Izzy?
Absolutely. Izzy writes, this is a shout out to my dad, who's a huge F1 fan and loves the podcast and has gotten me into the world of F1. So I wanted to shout him out on the podcast if possible. His name's not here.
Well, it's just
Izzy's dad. Izzy's dad.
Izzy's dad, congrats.
Izzy's dad, congrats on Izzy. She's rad. She's got a question. Thank you, she says. You're welcome, Izzy. My question is, why do you think so many new F1 fans have flocked to F1 and stuck with it? We talked about this a bit over the years. Drive to Survive, I think, is a great gateway drug for people to understand that it's about the people and it's about the teams. It's not just about the cars, and that it's not just about who wins. It's also about all the other little dramas that are happening in it. I think just inherently it is an exciting sport. I think people, who don't care about football will watch the Super Bowl. People who, don't care about soccer will tune into the World Cup. And I think in a way F1 is unique. Motorsport is like this, but I think F1 is still unique within the world of motorsport and certainly within sport, and that is this amazing traveling global circus, high production, camera shots, different parts of the world, different cultures, different tracks. And I think it's just inherently exciting in a way that, as much as I love my my favorite soccer team or my favorite whatever team, it's in the same stadium every weekend, right? Or we're, largely. And I think that is a big part of it. I think the spectacle of the sport is important, and goes a long way to people tuning in initially.
Yeah, I think the movie also helped. And I think the movie I think F1 was aided by the movie being very much about Formula One and about what it is like to race,
right?
And how races go. I think that's why I would suspect that you are not getting a bait and switch when you watch the F1 movie and then go watch Formula One. It is very similar.
Yeah, it's oddly technical. It's not overly technical,
right.
but it's oddly technical, and also not accurately technical, but
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right, Danny. I think there is, even though, Drive to Survive has really onboarded a lot of people, I think to Americans, Formula One is still a little exotic. And that's why,
I think
that's what drew me to it initially, right? It's this strange Euro sport. What's going on with this?
I think it's exotic to kind of everyone because, not every weekend when it's in Silverstone doesn't feel very exotic, but, a lot of the time it is because it's in, Baku or Miami. Like to Miami for people in the UK is like, is in Ireland is cool, Well, it's kind of cool, but it's like, let's go to Disneyland. Yeah. Sorry, and now I'm dunking on Miami again. Yeah. Sorry, Chris.
I would also say there's team-oriented competence porn. I think is exciting to people.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's like the pitch.
It's clearly, as much as F1 is like the drivers, the gladiators, and all that. Yeah. It is so clear that from the pit crew, the engineers, all of it is like a lot of effort and ability and resources. Let's be frank, being oriented toward this one goal, and then seeing them all sort of fire off their best shot all at once.
Yeah,
it's compelling theater. Speaking of those resources, Drew, you want to read this next one from Kelly?
Yes, Kelly from Seattle writes, "Hey, Shifties, I recently stepped into a new job that's pretty structurally linked to AI data center stuff, and it's got me thinking a lot about how we choose to compromise our morals as people who must live in the real world. F1 has been a sport I've loved since my uncle introduced it to me when I was a teen, and I've followed the podcast on and off since the beginning. However, while watching races this year and seeing all the AI ads, I found myself wincing. Truly, F1 is raised up by the things I hate the most about us as a species. How can I square loving watching race cars, zoom go fast, and the silly man children with the undeniable fact that the sport is constructed for, by, and as a symbol of the destructive capitalist system, which would happily chuck anything into the meat grinder as long as the system gets to keep on trucking? I'm not sure I expect an answer or for you to unlock the secret, but it's been a wild few months of introspection for me, and I would appreciate any thoughts you have." Thanks, Kelly. I think a lot about something that Rob said many years ago about sometimes we just need, and maybe, Rob, you can correct me if I'm misconstruing what you said, but sometimes we just need to have fun. That doesn't mean that you need to throw out the things that you care about. But yeah, I think you can kind of hold both. And I think it's good to keep things in perspective. This is, and maybe, many people would disagree with me on this, but like I kind of think that maybe at this point, it wouldn't be so bad if Formula One was like, you know what? We are just a gasoline powered, our cars are gasoline powered. We're going to be sustainable as we can getting all of our equipment. Because when you think about it, like the gas that is burned by the cars on track for the duration of the weekend is infinitesimal in the global scheme.
I guess,
right?
yeah. But
the tankers, and I understand optics and everything, right? Like you want to make sure that, look, we want to promote hybrid technology but if you didn't have to worry about that, say, and we're just looking at like actual, fuel expenditures, like, yes, organize the calendar so that you were most efficient about transportation, which is the
they
real
finally
fuel
have
burner.
done that to a certain
Yes.
extent, which is good.
But like,
I'll also
I
toss
think you
this
just
in.
you gotta weigh this stuff.
I, don't,
right? So
I feel weird about
maybe I've broadened a little bit from Kelly's actual question.
I
Wait,
feel
just
like
one thing about the sustainable fuels thing.
Yeah.
It is more real than we gave it credit for.
Yeah,
I looked
I
into
agree.
this a little
I
bit.
agree. Yeah.
It turns out it is not they're not doing carbon offsets. It has to be recaptured. They're not doing offsets. They're not doing like growing stuff for the sole purpose of turning it into fuel. It's they actually went considerably further with a like net zero racing fuel than I really thought they.
Yeah,
they
I was
were.
quite
I thought
cynical
was
about it
simple.
too. And yeah, I agree. I worry a bit about the Overton window shifting on the sustainability stuff a little bit. Like I do think we are pulling it back a bit more conservative on this stuff in a way that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And like, last year was the year that the most gas was consumed in the world. People talk a lot about how like, oh, China's doing a lot about renewables. Yeah, but China's also like gobbling up more and more and more as well. Like everyone is. Like that's just, we live in a society where your houses are made of concrete and your clothes have got plastic in them. So like everything's made of oil, right? We can't escape it. But so I'm a little bit but I don't think we should throw the cat out with the kitchen. I'm just going to say that. Let's make some metaphors. But to Kelly's original thing, I think, and I'm interested, like you said, Drew, in what Rob has to say about this, because I think he's got a great way with words about this stuff. To me, what F1 is a window into the bourgeois that we tend to we don't see in our day-to-day lives. I think the power structures that exist and that sort of keep us in our place, and that ultimately the money centers that the world rotate around are always there. We're just not looking at them. And F1 is a part of the world in which, unfortunately, we have to stare into that abyss, is that it is a sport that it requires so much money to work that it has to rub shoulders with the tip of the capitalist iceberg. So I don't see it as like you are... Like we live in a society, right? Like everything we do is controlled in some way by the systems of capital that we were born into. And for me, F1 is just like, it's a portal that we unfortunately have to see the realities of that a little bit closer. So I don't think people should feel personally attacked by it. I think it is worse to have your life be worse in another level because of the effects of capital. But I also don't think that should be a blank check for people to just say, hey, we can do whatever. You know what I mean?
Smoke them if you got them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's good to feel sensitive about those things, but I would be very hesitant, Kelly, to feel personally bad about it, because that is already what the system is likely doing to you, and you don't deserve a double tap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's a few levels of this. One is that, and this is gonna be ironic, I don't think in its origins or in how it's played out, F1 is particularly capitalist. I think it's a fun byproduct of a capitalist system and a very capitalist automotive industry. But like fundamentally, F1 is an expression of a desire to play and an expression to test ourselves. Like the origins of this is for no real upshot. People being like, can I make car go fast? Can I make it go faster? I like going in fast car. And that might be born and supported by, an automotive, you race on Sunday, sell on Monday type, type conception of things. But ultimately, I think F1 is just an expression of like impulse to play and an impulse to create.
And the thing that I always try and bear in mind when I think about like the sponsorship money that floods in and the ways the sport is sustained and supported by bad actors is that to a degree, I feel like we end up playing their game if we feel like it kind of lets them ruin it for us, which I think is part of the goal. That they slap their branding over these things, something that is like good and fun, is bring people together. And they force themselves to be a part of it. Oh, OpenAI is here. Oh, INEOS is here. So we're part of it too. It's sort of a cops at Pride type thing. Does that mean Pride is bad? That like the police are trying to send detachments to march in it? Obviously not. But there is a cynical effort to infiltrate it and both like steal some of its reflected goodness. But then also I think it still suits their objectives and overall agenda to make you feel shitty about like being there and be sitting there and thinking, am I complicit in these horrible systems by enjoying the sport that these people rolled up on and bought out wholesale? Danny, I'm sure, struggles with this even more pointedly as a football fan. That, you know, you just look up one day and a club you've loved for 30 years is now just intimately associated with somebody who's involved in war crimes or upholding an authoritarian government.
I'm glad I'm not into golf.
Right. And so to a degree, I think that feeling of discomfort and the God, like, should I even still be enjoying this? I think even that ends up playing into an overall sinister agenda because it forces the conflict inward.
Yes. Yeah.
When
agreed.
it really needs to be outward.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because fundamentally, and I part from a lot of my colleagues here on a variety of axes, but I actually don't think there's any moral good served by being in moral agony about something that's affiliated or connected to bad actors.
Yeah.
The actual like angle of attack on these folks is through political action. And now that can get blurry with things about like organized activism and like to what degree is a boycott effective activism. But overall, my view is every time the conversation is turning inward about like how you feel about something or your individual actions, which have no material impact on these systems, anytime that the conflict moves inward and it becomes about what you are doing on these individual levels in reaction to these systems, I think that's a sucker's game because I think that leads to paralysis. I think it leads to actually deeper alienation from folks who you're looking at them and, hey, we share the same values, but why are you enjoying this thing? And I'm feeling like the buzzkill saying that you shouldn't be.
Right,
and
or
suddenly
just people who care checking out entirely.
Right. And ultimately, like my sort of view on this is really simple. These systems don't care one iota about your inner conflict. They don't care one iota about your passive complicity. Like participate, don't. It doesn't matter to them. It will not affect them one jot. What affects them is losing the political battle. The political battle, like, affects the overall landscape of these things. These folks, like, there's a reason they work so hard to twist elections. There's a reason they buy off politicians, is because, like, with a stroke of a pen, a lot of this can be profoundly modified or ended. And that's ultimately their objective, to avoid that ever happening and to masquerade as like friends of the common people and friends of a prosperous status quo. But ultimately, for me, it really comes down to, do those feelings direct you outward toward like effective political action, or do they direct you inward toward self-analysis and withdrawal from other people, from things you like? And that is where I come down. There's a lot of people who disagree profoundly with me and would say, like, that is a lot of words to explain your own complacency. Entirely possible, but that is where I come down. To the best of my ability to analyze this,
that is the landscape that I see, and that's kind of how I act.
Just a quickly capstone on that one. Like I agree entirely, and I think what happens a lot is, and I've learned it, I think moving from Europe to America, is that people are ultimately only able to express themselves politically when they have the means to do so through whatever vectors there are. And I think one of the problems you run into, and perhaps this is why I personally feel like boycotts are an effective part of protesting, but to a limit. But I think in a society like in America, in which individual political power has been so constrained that people over-index the importance of it as a means of political action because it's the only weapon they've got in their closet sometimes. And I'm totally, I think I said something similar with Rob, where like the inward battle, you've explained it perfectly, is exactly what you should avoid. Like if that pushes you into actually changing the world around you, that's better. And also, the last thing I'll say is, I don't think sports washing works.
No,
it
pisses people off.
It leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. If anything, it highlights the contradictions. You know what I mean? Like we've now lived in sort of, an era of this for a couple of decades, and I think like Rob said, the ways in which these centers of power influence the world is through politics, and ultimately that's also where our eyes should be when we're trying to affect change, is politics.
Yeah, I mean, it in a lot of ways, it feels like it's my sport, and sometimes people I don't like are trying to take it from me, right. And that's why we get heated on this podcast sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Closing out on a light note, Zach from Savage, Minnesota, making
beautiful.
up for that Hallmark movie debacle with a good email here.
Thanks, Zach.
Since I am known as the motorsport obsessive in my family, I tend to get a lot of racing-related gifts from people who don't know what to get me. I also enjoy reading a lot, so this year for my birthday, I got Racing Hearts by Grace Newman, which is part of the ever-growing list of F1-related romance novels from someone who didn't know what that word meant. It's about the first female F1 driver doing what all women at the top of their game would do, which is falling in love with a male driver. Granted, in this story, it's a fake romance to gain... Oh, man, it's a fake romance to gain sponsors, but it ends up becoming the real deal?
Wow. Okay, I'm back in.
I didn't love it compared to, say, Adrian Newey's book, but unlike Newey's book, it was pretty steamy in places, and you could read it in a long afternoon. I used to review games and movies, so this activated the part of my brain that makes me want to dive into a genre and learn it. Thanks to my local library, I now have read Double Apex, Cross the Line, Slipstream. These all sound dirty now.
They do, don't they?
Slipstream, Drive Me Crazy, and Pole Position, my first male/male book.
Oh my God.
Thank you, God. My quest will continue until I find one I think is really good, as so far they've all been pretty meh. I need to write one. I could fucking nail this. But if anyone is looking for recommendations, Pole Position and Drive Me Crazy were the ones that seem to understand motorsport the best.
Oh my God.
Final note, it is staggering how many authors seem to think it would be physically possible to have sex inside an F1 car. That's a rookie move. You gotta put someone over a part of an F1 car.
Yes,
that you can sort of buy.
Yeah,
but like not
the wings.
No.
The wings are way too. They're not as strong as they look. But
yeah,
in a car, no. Pole Position is S tier guy on guy romance title. That is. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the week. That is amazing.
Spit Roasted on the Monocoque by Rob Zachney.
Ground effect. God, you can do anything. You can do anything. Oh my God.
Well, you can do anything like send us an email at shift+1podcast@gmail.com or a note on the socials using the link in the show notes. That is us around the internet. Should we take it around the world?
Let's
today?
race around the world.
Kicking things off on Friday with the Craftsman trucks at Texas Motor Speedway for the SpeedyCash.com
Speedy Cash
250.
Yep.
We've got the World Superbike Championship at Balton Park Circuit in Hungary. Formula E is at the Berlin Tempelhof Airport for the Berlin E-Prix.
Yeah. Airport race.
Formula 2. Yeah, it's a cool track, if I recall correctly. Formula 2 is supporting Formula 1 at the Miami International Autodrome.
Check out our primer. Become a patron.
Indeed. We've got our the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series at Texas Motor Speedway for Andy's Frozen Custard 340.
Such a good one. I cannot believe they sell enough frozen custard to sponsor a race. That is, people must be just insane for trifles down there. It's amazing.
Yeah. The IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship is at Laguna Seca in beautiful Monterey. Salinas,
Should we head
California?
down? Should we head down? Let's do it.
That sounds like a great time. 2 hour. It's a 2 hour 40-minute race with looks like just GT cars.
Can you imagine the traffic
this time.
going through like Santa Cruz to get there? I bet it's a 2 hour 40 parking lot on the way there.
I mean, maybe not for IMSA.
Yeah, I guess.
IMSA's still a little underground.
That's true.
The NHRA is at the South Georgia Motorsports Park in Adel, Georgia.
Ooh.
And we got NASCAR.
Yeah.
Also in Tejas for the, I'm going to go with the German pronunciation, Verth. It's W and then a U with the 2 dots. The umlaut.
Okay. What?
The Verth 400 presented by
Verth.
Liqui
Oh,
Molly.
Liqui Molly. Good stuff.
Yep.
It's my favorite way to take Molly.
Liquid.
I still don't know what Liqui Molly is. It just makes me think.
I
of
think it's a
drug.
petroleum product of some kind.
Yeah, makes sense.
Formula One, maybe you've heard of it, kicks things off sprint weekend, Friday, May 1st. Free practice 1 starts at 12. If you're planning on watching practice, set your VCRs to 30 minutes earlier. Sprint qualifying is at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. These are Eastern times, by the way. And then Saturday, May 2nd, the sprint is at 12 noon, followed by qualifying at 4 p.m. And then the race, everyone, Sunday, May 3rd at 4 p.m. Eastern in Florida. I'm not saying the channels anymore because it's all on Apple TV. At least in America.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right, well, that's what's going on this weekend. Danny, what happened this day in the past?
The book is here. This day, we're going to go again by recording day, especially because of our early access patrons. All the patrons get this podcast.
Oh.
You may not know this. Like, almost the day before. It goes up the morning of recording. So this will be up in about an hour. So April 28th, in the past, I had it open on March 28th. Do you know what's really sad? I actually was organizing an interview, as I find the date here, for the past week or so, which was for the 28th of May, that I thought was for the 28th of April. And it wasn't until like late last night that I realized I wasn't driving to San Francisco today as well to do an interview. So yeah, I'm not great with months, it turns out. So here we go. And I've opened it once again to May. So let's try this again. Now we're going to go for the middle one. Split the difference. Yeah. April 28th. Damon Hill got a new job in 2006 when he was elected as the new president of the British Racing Drivers Club at their annual general meeting. The BRDC, which owns the Silverstone circuit, chose Hill to replace Sir Jackie Stewart. Hill said, "To be elected to such a prestigious club is an honor. It's a big job." Man, slow news day on April 28th.
Wow, yeah, that might be the least substantive one we've ever done.
I totally agree. But perhaps the second paragraph is even more boring. Also today, 2006, Dave Richards' ProDrive company was granted permission to enter an F1 team in 2008. Richards had previously served as a team boss at Benetton and BAR, but his own team has yet to enter the sport after a row over its proposed use of customer cars. That is the worst one we've ever had. Jesus.
So glad we're now doing recording day.
Yeah, exactly. We're mixing. Yeah. Who knew? God, what a snooze fest. Sorry,
well,
everyone. But at least no one
hopefully
died.
Miami, will not be a snooze fest. Final thoughts. Danny.
Excited for Miami. I hated this break we didn't need to have. So excited to get back racing. Just excited. It's also good. It's a fun US race. And also I got a new TV that has
sweet,
like it's OLED and has all the McGubbins and everything looks fucking amazing on it and all the
motion smoothing cranked all the way up.
Yeah, exactly. It does 144 hertz. Do we know if Apple pushes past 59.97 or anything? I don't think it does.
I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? For sports, I'll turn on the motion smoothing. I'll turn on the adaptive frame rate stuff.
The only acceptable.
Yeah.
I sometimes do that myself.
use
Yeah,
for
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Don't make me do it. I'll do it.
Final thoughts, Rob.
I've been trying to find like the greatest review of Margaritaville restaurant. There's somewhere like deep in my brain, like 15 years ago, there was a review of a Margaritaville location in New York that was like this meditation on. It's not the Eater one. People are gonna think it's the one from Eater. It's not, but it was this meditation on like sort of the sort of bittersweetness of like people clinging to the Parrot Head Margaritaville lifestyle in the midst of Midtown Manhattan.
Right.
And what it means that even in places where it makes no sense, this dream has such allure. But I can't find it.
Wow. That's how I
Okay,
feel
well,
about
if you do, we'll put it in the show notes.
That's how I feel about rainforest cafes. A little piece of nature in the middle of all this concrete.
Well, maybe there's a metaphor there somewhere. If you'd like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the early ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.